This is a reading of the government claim of John Markle. The following statement of facts and/or history of actions prepared by counsel for Police Chief John Markle is based upon information presently available and known by Chief Markle and his counsel. Chief Markle and counsel have not yet completed their investigation of the facts related to this claim, nor have they yet engaged in civil discovery and completed their preparation for trial in this case. Therefore, all statements below are given without prejudice to Chief Markle's rights to produce evidence of any subsequently discovered facts and of any further information as such becomes known to them. The City of Livingston hired John Markle as its Chief of Police on June 3, 2021. The City of Livingston and Chief Markle entered into a written employment agreement which was set to expire on June 3, 2024. Chief Markle has 34 years of public service as a law enforcement officer, holds high ethical standards while being committed to transparency and honesty within the Livingston Police Department. Adhering to these ideals and his desire to comply with the law and the internal policies, rules, and regulations of the Livingston Police Department, Chief Markle sought to administer specific disciplinary action against Sergeant Wapinder Kang for violations of Livingston Police Department regulations, which encompasses the commitment of crimes as defined under the California Penal Code. However, such actions were opposed by Sergeant Kang's brother, Gagandeep Kang, a member of the Livingston City Council, their close friend, Robert T. Garcia, then Mayor of Livingston, Tom Hallinan, City Attorney, and Vanessa L. Portillo, City Manager. I will inject a comment of my own here that Garcia is actually Mayor Pro Tem, but I'm sure they're going to get this straightened out before this goes to trial. Based on Chief Markle's intended actions and before such actions could be taken, the City of Livingston created a hostile work environment, interfered and frustrated Chief Markle's ability to fulfill his duties as Chief of Police, and unlawfully terminated Chief Markle from his employment as Chief of Police in breach of his written employment contract. On July 3, 2021, Police Sergeant Wapinder Kang and Police Officer Hare were on duty conducting enforcement against the ignition of illegal fireworks. While in the course and scope of his law enforcement duties, Sergeant Kang observed a male resident, later identified as Stephen Nornberg, igniting illegal fireworks. Upon contact, Sergeant Kang was informed by Mr. Nornberg that he was a correctional officer employed by the state of California, working with the California Department of Corrections. Upon learning this information, Sergeant Kang made a deal with Mr. Nornberg to issue the illegal use of fireworks citation to his wife, Mrs. Nornberg, instead of Mr. Nornberg. Sergeant Kang made this deal despite the fact that neither he nor Officer Hare ever saw Mrs. Nornberg ignite any fireworks or commit any other crime. Sergeant Kang then instructed Officer Hare to issue the criminal citation to Mrs. Nornberg. The aforementioned events and actions of Sergeant Kang were brought to Chief Markle's attention by another Livingston Police Department Sergeant, John Ramirez. Upon learning of these events and/or actions, and after reviewing the body camera footage from Officer Hare, Chief Markle initiated an internal affairs investigation of the incident and turned the information over to the Merced County District Attorney, which filed a criminal complaint against Sergeant Kang for his violation of Criminal Penal Code Section 118. As the Livingston Police Department did not have sufficient resources to conduct the internal affairs investigation, Chief Markle hired an outside firm agency to conduct the investigation. The investigation was sustained on 7 of the 8 reported policy violations against Sergeant Kang. At all times herein, Chief Markle abided by the laws, regulations, and official standards of his office and the state of California. On July 14, 2021, and pending completion of the internal affairs investigation, Chief Markle placed Sergeant Kang on administrative leave. Based on the sustained internal affairs investigation, Chief Markle served Sergeant Kang with a written intent to terminate. Thereafter, and with the intent to prevent Chief Markle from terminating Sergeant Kang from the Livingston Police Department, the City of Livingston, by and through its officers, directors, employees, and agents, took certain wrongful overt and covert actions to delay, dissuade, interfere with, and constructively prevent Chief Markle from enforcing the policies and/or regulations of the Livingston Police Department against Sergeant Kang. Said wrongful actions include, but were not limited to, those delineated below, all of which created an intolerable and hostile working environment and caused Chief Markle the inability to perform, implement, and/or enforce his lawful obligations and duties as the Chief of Police, causing a constructive and wrongful termination of Chief Markle by the City of Livingston in violation of the Public Safety Officers Procedural Bill of Rights Act, POBR, enacted in 1977 as Assembly Bill 301 and codified in the California Government Code at sections 3300 through 3313. 1. On September 21, 2021, Chief Markle provided City Manager Vanessa L. Portillo a copy of the internal investigation and notice of discipline for Sergeant Kang for her review. At that time, Ms. Portillo told Chief Markle that the City Council and City Attorney Tom Hallinan were pressuring her on the Sergeant Kang personnel matter. 2. On October 14, 2021, City Personnel Attorney Gage Dungy told Chief Markle that City Attorney Tom Hallinan was questioning him about the discipline actions pending against Sergeant Kang and why he, Chief Markle, was moving forward with the administrative discipline when the criminal portion of the matter had not been completed. Neither issue was a concern or matter for the City Attorney Tom Hallinan to be involved with. Later that day, Chief Markle was informed that Tom Hallinan sent an email to Gage Dungy stating that Chief Markle should stop further administrative actions against Sergeant Kang because a judge was going to dismiss the charges. From these actions, Chief Markle believed that Tom Hallinan was acting as counsel and advocate for Sergeant Kang and not the City of Livingston. On November 9, 2021, City Manager Vanessa L. Portillo refused to allow Human Resource, that should be Human Resource Director, Lam Silva to attend Sergeant Kang's Skelly hearing. On November 12, 2021, Chief Markle was told by Gage Dungy that he, Dungy, was instructed by City Manager L. Portillo to stop working on the Sergeant Kang case matter and was to turn everything over to Tom Hallinan. Chief Markle received a similar email from Ms. Portillo the same day. On multiple occasions prior to November 12, 2021, Ms. Portillo told Chief Markle that Tom Hallinan had consistently injected himself into the Sergeant Kang matter and was determined to take control of the matter at the direction of and/or with the support of the Livingston City Council, upon which Sergeant Kang's brother, Gangadeep Kang, sits, and Mayor, that should be Mayor Pro Tem, Raul Garcia, a close friend of the Kang brothers. On November 15, 2021, and based on the continuing and consolidated interference and/or intervention by the City of Livingston through its officers, directors, employees, and agents in the pending administrative disciplinary actions against Sergeant Kang, which were performed with the intent to protect Sergeant Kang and/or prohibit any adverse actions against Sergeant Kang, Chief Markle was prevented from performing his required law enforcement duties, stripped of his authority, and constructively terminated as Chief of Police. A contrived retirement, actual termination date, was then set for December 31, 2021. On November 16, 2021, rather than honor Chief Markle's remaining time and allow him to perform his sworn duties through December 31, 2021, City Manager Vanessa L. Portillo, acting at the presumed direction of the City Council and with the presumed approval of the City Attorney, placed Chief Markle on administrative leave, thus guaranteeing that Chief Markle could not take, enforce, and/or implement any further disciplinary action against Sergeant Kang. Description of injury, damage, or loss incurred. Breach of employment contract resulting in the loss of earnings, benefits, and retirement. Responsible parties. The names of the public employees causing claimants injuries and/or damages are included, identified herein, plus other current and former officers, directors, employees, and agents of the City of Livingston currently unknown to claimant. The City of Livingston is vicariously responsible and liable through the principle of respondeat superior for the actions and inactions of its employees and agents, including but not limited to those persons who were present but failed to intervene and stop their fellow officers, directors, employees, and agents who were integral participants to or aided or abetted the circumstances described herein. Damages and jurisdiction. The amount claimed by claimant exceeds $10,000. If filed in a Superior Court of California, the action would qualify for unlimited civil case jurisdiction, as the amount in controversy would exceed $25,000 with an estimated value of $1 million. Any editorial content expressed on any of my videos in 2022 are my own as a resident of Livingston and do not represent the views and opinions of the City Council or the official position of the City of Livingston itself.